Mr. Rajamouli?
I would really love to do, not just in terms of action, but a really strong female lead leading the whole story. There are a couple of storylines that are running in my mind. We are discussing that. Um, but like any film, at the end of, I don't think too many films at a time. At the end of one film, I'll just look at what are the exciting ideas that are around me, and I pick up the most exciting one at that point of time and go forward. If it's a hero film, it's a hero film. It's a heroine film, it's a heroine film.
You don't overthink it then. Um, I want to ask you, Mr. Rajamouli, the best action sequences are usually sort of hinged on a unique idea. I'm going to discuss one from RRR. It is, of course, that sequence in which Junior NTR's character Bheem crashes that celebration with that truck, and he releases dozens of wild animals, including tigers, that wreak havoc at this celebration. How do you come up with something like that?
I like some crazy ideas, definitely. And it also has a little bit work on his character. He's a tribal. Then, as we are working it, we see what are his strengths. Being a man, tribal man, being living in the jungle, he will have lots of ways to do with the animals. So that kind of thinking, if he's going into a place which is not his strength, so obviously he will garner his strengths and go. So what are his strengths? Uh, Animals can be a thing. No, so that kind of thinking will lead me to that. But apart from that, I really like to surprise and awe the people to the maximum.
It's quite evident in your films. Um, for the Russos, I think certainly where the Grey Man is concerned, it's got to be that sequence in the city square in Prague, which is again a great idea because you've got a target that's actually handcuffed to a bench, and there's bullets and there's blasts and there's a SWAT team, and they can't take him out. And then, of course, it culminates in that extraordinary tram sequence. I want to be your shrink for a moment, play along. Can I link the kind of action that you do to the 8-year-old in you that just enjoyed blowing things up?
Probably.
Perhaps.
I think.
Although we were a bit more academic when we were kids. We were sort of, we weren't making movies, we weren't trying to make movies. We were more like just film geeks enjoying movies. But certainly we grew up with a bit of a punk rock attitude toward the world, and I think that sort of tearing things up is sort of certainly appealing to us on some level.
We're maximalists. I mean, we're entertained by excess. We love scale, we like ambition. This was always meant to be a relentless action exercise. So, with these sort of essential character elements pushing the film, but driven by action, like the kind of movie that from frame one, it doesn't let you go till it's over. So that was the intent here, and it's what we admired about the novel was how inventive and big and relentless it was in terms of action.
Mr. Rajamouli, can I ask you the same question? Is the love for action linked to some sort of childhood fascination for blowing stuff up?
I don't know. From child, as young as I can remember, I loved action. Whether it's in the comic books, cartoons, or Western films or novels, whatever. Action really caught up with me. I really love action films. But I want to ask Joe and Anthony on that. I was just reading in The Grey Man, they had 9 action set pieces. Okay, that's fine. But they shot that within a space of 5 months. They started in March and finished in July.
That's I think that's,
Possibly.
that's
Yeah, I
pretty
think
much
that
what it is.
sounds
I think
right,
we're
yes.
done in July. Yeah.
How can you do that? I mean, the trailer shows what kind of action that we are going to witness. In fact, one of the things that I hated with the interview is I had to stop the film in between and come to this. I just started and I had to come to this. In the trailer, that it was like so much of action, and how could you do it in 5 months? Like, are you directing 2 separate units?
Great,
sometimes,
great level of collaborators that we work with. We do run multiple units. Our second unit, so I think we shot for 95 days, and our second unit shot for 95 days, and we had a third unit that shot for about 40 days. So we do run multiple units because we have a a very big crew that we have worked with for the better part of a decade now, that has done all the Marvel movies with us. We're in a mind meld with each other. We have a common language about what we're trying to accomplish, and it is it's a military operation running a film crew, and so we're fortunate enough to have the budget to support the scale of crew that we need in order to pull this off in a way that it doesn't take a year and a half to shoot it.
I think we also, we've always spent a long time preparing. We spend many, many months preparing, as you may do. But all because we were shooting this movie during the pandemic, and we knew that things were once we got to production, things were going to be even more complicated than they normally are, and perhaps be more challenging than they normally are. I think we prepared even more thoroughly so that we could overcome the complications. So that might have been also a help in terms of accomplishing it.
Great to know, but that must be one hell of a team that you have.
They are
They're very good.
for sure.
Yeah.
Mr. Rajamouli, while we're on the subject, I think you'll agree with me that, in Indian films often get, and I know that it's critics like myself who've done that as well. You'll see a great action scene and you'll say it's great by Indian standards, and there's always a comparison being made to the Avengers or to one of the big American tentpole films. I want to ask you: do you feel like and I do feel actually that RRR and Bahubali have changed that narrative to some degree, because they do really hold up on very to the highest standards. But I want to ask you: is budget usually the only reason that maybe some of our best action sequences do not look as big as they would, as maybe the American films that we see?
No, budget is definitely a reason, but it's not the first reason. It is. I mean, if you have the intent of really going big, and you have, like they were saying, if you have a great team to support, those are the first principle things. You should have the intent, you should have a team, you should have a vision, and then comes the budget. And most of the time, if you have the first three, the budget will somehow come in and support. Like the kind of action sequences that we did for Bahubali was like, the first is like in 150 crores, which is like peanuts for the kind of budget for the action that we did.
To the Russos, you've made these big box office blockbusters for the studios. Why was Netflix the right home for The Gray Man?
Well, look, Joe and I, in conceiving The Gray Man and wanting to make it, we did want to construct a film that was extremely ambitious on an action level, and that was the experience for the lead characters and for the audience would be that of just running a gauntlet from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie. So I think the scope of it, Netflix was in a period of great growth, and they were wanting to be very ambitious in terms of what they could accomplish as a studio. And they just wanted to support the film in the most strong way. And that's really why it felt right with Netflix. It just seemed the ambition of the movie seemed to line up with their appetite for what they wanted to do as a studio. And they've been perfect partners. We already had a working relationship with them. We've produced several movies with Netflix up to this point, and we have a very strong, easy, successful partnership with them established. So once we knew that they had the appetite for a movie like this, that's where it all clicked.
Mr. Rajamouli, I think it's fair to say that after a very successful theatrical run, RRR was practically sort of rediscovered when it streamed on Netflix. The American critics discovered it. It became this critics' darling. A whole new audience sort of found out about RRR. There's some very serious talk of Oscar potential. Were you surprised by just how much attention the film was getting after it began streaming?
Yeah, there are two questions in your question. One thing is like, first of all, I'm actually angry with Netflix because They took only the Hindi version, not the rest of the four. So that is, I have a complaint against them. Second thing is, yes, I was surprised with the reception from the